area of law,
Right.
they're actually required to take a separate bar. That's the first thing you do, because if you really want to protect something and you try and do it on your own, you're going to run into the problem that you just suggested.
So it's a patent if it's an invention that has some schematics to it or something that you can touch and feel. A copyright if it's something that you produced, like a music or photo or art. Trademark if it's a name of some type. So trademark, you can use names, put them out, in use, because I think, in fact, in part of your trademark application, it's what is the date of first use. So you have to put that in there. What you're talking about, and where it becomes interesting, is you put it out in use, and now you're saying it's on the internet, someone sees it. Now they run to the trademark office to trademark it before you do. If you can show that you used it first and it was in use, then there may be some protection anyway. But I think you're right. Use it and then move to trademark it right away.
I guess as I read about it here, first to invent versus first to file. So you could actually be in trouble in that marginal, perhaps very quick period of time that someone else beats you to it before someone else files. Yet another complication or quirk about the nature of the wonders of fast-speed technology.
Right. Wasn't there some issue with the telephone as to who invented it first? Alexander Graham Bell, I think, absolutely got the patent first, but there was an issue as to whether or not he actually invented it first.
Didn't know that,
That
didn't
happens
you?
a lot with music,
Google it.
too.
With music.
Yeah.
It always happens with music. Well, we had that case in United States District Court with the college student who was sued by, I guess, what was it, iTunes or Napster?
Napster at the time?
For downloading music for which he had no license and for which he didn't pay. And you know what the end result was, is he was fined a few $100,000.
Yeah, now I think it was sued by the folks that held the union or whatever it is that holds the trademarks or the copyrights, I should say, for music on that, and he was downloading them against their rights, as they said it.
Well, it's all of it's about ideas. I mean, even Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, and the creator of Facebook, the same sort of thing. And there was a case with him as well, because he had originally started working with a couple of other guys who said, hey, we've got this idea, and this is how, we're kind of what we want to do. And he sort of took that idea and ran with it in another direction. And so it's really, whether it's internet, paper, however you're disseminating the idea, that's what that law is all about.
Right.
Yeah.
And, well, the interesting thing is, and we've talked about this before, the law is the law, and it applies to the internet as well as any other place. And the problem is sometimes trying to keep the law up with technology. And there are some nuances that might happen, but in general, the same principles apply.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Facebook, so it's a good topic to discuss. You have clients who are likely to use Facebook or any of the other social media technology. If you're dealing with the technology aspect of it, do you have to how do you deal with it in terms of those who are likely to use it and then have their privacy invaded or some breach of security or data that you have to grapple with? How do you address that, Pam?
We just recently started doing this because it just recently started becoming more prevalent of an issue, I think. But one of the things that you can do is have a social media policy. So it's a written document, and also training your people on what is acceptable and what is not. And there was recent case law, you might know more of what it was, but there was recent case law that you can't be general anymore. In other words, you can't say you're not allowed to go on Facebook and say anything about our company. Well, that's not allowed, because there was a case where there was employees going on talking about basically how to better the company, and the court said that's fine. Yeah, they were griping and they were cussing, but it's free speech, and they were talking about improving the company, really, so you can't sort of stop them from doing that. There are some websites I know of in terms of company reputation and protecting a company reputation that, or in services that I know of that I've recommended, that will go out and kind of find find your company name all over the place. In fact, Google has a free way to do that that you can use, and it just does a search and finds your company name anywhere out there, and will send you an email about what's being said about you. So that's one way I think that we have in terms of helping people to sift through that.
So if you can find that information, is there anything you can do about it?
I mean, there's there are firms, they're very expensive, but there are firms that sort of, they're not attorneys, but they'll basically advocate for you, and they will post counter, messages about you, and so to sort of balance the scale.
Right.
But they're very expensive to do, and but that is an option.
Is that more of a marketing type of thing?
It really kind of is more of a, I think.
Certainly is.
Yeah, more of a marketing protection kind of thing.
So who would we ask about that?
Yeah, we would ask that would be
Ms. Barat.
And certainly they do. And I think that there's really a good deal that you can say positively about managing information. And monitoring sites, those are pro and con and for or again. You certainly make sense to do that. And it's a good idea if you are out there to have someone watching what's being said by your employees or about you, and then what's been tweeted and retweeted. There certainly is a good value in doing that. From your perspective, when you have to deal with these issues about Facebook now and LinkedIn, and a company finds that someone is saying something that they ought not to say, is that a legal issue?
Go ahead.
I don't think it's a legal issue until they're giving away a trade secret.
Okay,
So
that's
now
one
you have a
good one.
legal issue.
Right.
But if they're out there saying, I hate my boss, I hate my job, I think you go back to what Pam says, is it falls into that category of free speech.
And then you have to...
And then
wor-
fire the person.
Right, worry about the other side. If you're the person saying it,
That's
can the
right.
company just fire me for doing that? Do you have a contract? Are you part of a union? If it's Rhode Island,
Employee at will.
employment at will, they can fire you.
What about defamation?
Possibly, depending on what you say isn't true.
Could
Right.
be, yeah. It's a high, more difficult to prove defamation. If you're a public servant,
Yeah, if you can't...
New York Times versus Sullivan.
Exactly. If you're somewhat in the public light, the public spotlight, I think,
Yeah.
is what the New York Times case was about, then the standard is higher.
Yeah.
But if you're saying something about a company, now a company
And you
is
know
public.
it's not true.
But you know it's not true, so that's exactly it. Malice aforethought. Did you say something that you knew when you said it wasn't true?
Mm-hmm.
You can be held liable for that.
And I would think, too, that certain industries, I was speaking with John Truvanis, he does, SEO policies, and he was talking this morning with me about healthcare industry. There was a case or an issue where there was a nurse whose dad had gone into the hospital, and she was on Facebook and just saying, she was working at the hospital when she went on Facebook, and was just saying, hey, my dad's in the hospital, and here's what's going on with him, and she got fired.
Yeah, HIPAA
because
issues
that's
there.
patient confidentiality.
It speaks to content, yes.
Right, exactly. So, obviously healthcare would have that, and I assume other industries would have those kinds of regulations
Right.
too.
What about from the legal perspective, e-discovery? If there is so much e-commerce and internet information that's available, how does that impact on what you do, or can't do, I should say, if you are trying to prove a case or defend a case, and you
Well-
have access to Facebook and all the rest?
For
We
what-
talked about a topic a while ago.
Definitely, for what
about
David
this.
and I do mostly, which is domestic relations, Facebook is great, because if you want to find out what someone's doing, then just go there, because people love to put things out in the open, they like to put photos. So somebody comes in my office, I had someone the other day who called me, and the first thing I said is, no Facebook, no MySpace, I don't even know if that's around anymore. Nothing.
12 years
I
old.
want nothing on the internet, absolutely nothing, because we're going to pick it up and we're going to use it.
Right, and it's...
And end up in court.
A big part of lawsuits now, discovery used to be just, here's your deposition, here's your interrogatories, send us everything you have in writing, request for production. There's always stuff on the internet now that you want to get the emails. Send me all the emails. I had a case where I think I had 20 boxes, the banker-type boxes, of emails that had been printed out. So it's a big part of discovery.
I actually defended a restraining order, domestic abuse restraining order in Providence a couple of years ago, where the litigant actually filed an abuse petition against one of my clients, stating that he was harassing her daughter on Facebook. And the judge flat out said, ma'am, you have no expectation of privacy. Once you put it on the internet,
That's exactly a question I was going to ask.
and there was no harassment.
We know in New York that that's stated. Is that true state by state, case by case? How is it really true that no one has any right to expect privacy the minute they've tapped into Facebook or decided to upload whatever? True?
From a legal perspective, how could you? The expectation of privacy means you expect privacy. If you put it out on the internet where anyone can see it.
It's there.
There might be a little bit of issue, let's say if you have a password-protected website that you don't expect people to get into. But if it's Facebook and it's not protected, and I don't deal with Facebook, so I don't know it, but
So
Yeah,
Pam,
there are actually privacy settings inside of Facebook, and there was a recent issue where there was a hacker had gotten into the servers and had actually caused an issue with privacy settings. So, I mean, I typically tell people the same thing, that even if it says, even if your settings say that public does not see this, YouTube has the same issue.
Right.
You can, when you post a video to YouTube, you can say, I want everybody to see this, I only want the people I invite to see this, or I only want, you know, a certain privacy setting to see this. But that actually has been compromised as well. So from my perspective, there is no such thing.
I often wonder too about YouTubers when somebody, when someone's going to be sued for taking something off television and putting it on a YouTube page. You know, people will take clips from TV shows,
Right.
movies, they'll put it on the YouTube page. My understanding is that's a copyright infringement.
well, it's
no?
interesting, but the people who show it is might like the idea of some more publicity about it, so they might not complain.
who owns it is an issue too. You own
Right.
what one show is, you can put that on, but if you are taking it from someone else's, that speaks to
Right.
what you were saying about copywriting and infringement. Those privacy settings, someone is going to be using Google and using Facebook and using LinkedIn. Isn't it true that all of those other sites pass through and can certainly be infiltrated and breached quite easily? Do you read, I mean, this is your business, but I imagine that
Yeah,
you
I wouldn't
see a
say
lot
that it's
then.
quite easily. There are a
Hackers?
couple, yeah, there are a couple of really strong hacker groups out there now. One is called LulzSec and one's called Anonymous, and they're basically using their genius for bad is the only way that I can describe them. And so certainly not easy, but that has been done. I mean, for goodness sakes, you know, the extremely large companies have been, you know, hacked into. Sony was hacked into.
Federal government.
Federal government has been hacked into, although their technology is probably behind the times. But anyway.
I wonder why.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think that anything is 100%, and that's true for really anything in technology. Nothing is 100% secure, and that's the truth. There are certain things you can put into place to protect it, but nothing's fail-safe.
Comment on this while you're addressing that, Pam. So much is being addressed through the cloud now. It's another wonderful technological gadget and not gadget, but way of dealing with business. Can you speak to the likelihood of breaching and data security with the cloud?
Yeah, so
Yes, more.
the cloud really just being operating your business over the internet instead of having physical equipment there. But essentially, I actually think it's more secure than having equipment in your office, because in your office you have issues of theft and employee sabotage and, you know, just the costs merely of having it done. Using the cloud is, in my opinion, more secure.
Any more issues that you have with that before we wrap up?
No, I think what you're saying makes sense, that if you're going to go through the cloud, it's just as safe as having the computer or hard drive in your office that could actually physically be stolen.
Right.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank
Thanks.
you,
Thank you.
Pam.
Thanks for having
We really appreciate your being there. Jackie, David, thank you also for tuning in. We hope that we've addressed at least some of the issues that cross your desk, whether you end up being consumer or business-oriented, and we will continue this discussion. We hope that you will join us the next time as our discussion of legal matters continues. Also, you can see us or address us at legalmatters@fullchanneltv.net. Thank you.